Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the truth and nothing but the truth. So, Lisa, I feel like it's been a long time coming. I'm a little giddy, but it is what it is, right? We're excited about being here. So, happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural episode of the truth and nothing but the truth. And so, before we get started, do us a favor, share the video with somebody you believe needs to hear this message right now. Click the notification button to follow or subscribe so you know every time we go live. And then some of you may catch us on the replay, so thank you for joining then. And this is a disclaimer. We want this to be an interactive conversation, so please give StreamYard permission in the above in the post. So we want to hear and see or see your comments, and we're excited about getting started. We're going to start off with some introductions as people are coming in. Hopefully you liked our music because we were vibing to it on the back end, getting the groove in. But I am Dr. Katina Fuller-Scott. I am a reconnection strategist and the proud founder of Be What Matters. We are a social purpose movement that specializes in transforming lives and spaces through speaking, coaching, training, and consulting. And on a broader scale, we have a community of social transformers who believe in making an impact wherever they go. And so I'm excited to be here today with you all and to be next to other way to Lisa. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Lisa.
I am Lisa Lewis Daniels, and I'm the founder of Lionheart Society, where we value career, marriage, and parenthood. I'm an executive leadership coach by way of Georgetown. Go Hoyas! Woo, 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 woo.
Don't have me start representing now.
And so I'm here connecting with Katrina to talk about marriage today. I'm super excited because anyone that knows me, I'm always talking about my whole man and my whole baby, and how we're just like trying to live our best life all the time. So it's such an honor to be able to have this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you so much. And to tell you a little bit about us, as our post said, we are two strangers who met during COVID and hit it off. So a little bit about Lisa. She has a kind of personality that's kind of straightforward. So I remember in connecting with her, yes, I'm telling off on you, connecting with her, she was like, okay, so where are we going with this? And you know what I appreciate about that, Lisa, was that it showed that you valued and guarded your time, right? And the relationships that you have. And so I feel honored to be on this journey with you. I feel like we're going to impact the lives we need to impact, and I'm excited to get into our conversation. But tell me just a little bit about how you felt about connecting with me on social media.
So I don't recall that statement. However, it does sound like me, so I will own it. I would say in that moment, we were experiencing COVID, right? Everyone was really in a state of shock, and probably only a close few knew that I was actually going through the Georgetown program. So I was actually completing school at the same time. And I really want to say homeschooling, but my kid was at home. So we were going through school and I was still working some of the time. So it was just crazy. So as a working parent, your time is valuable. And so you don't have a whole lot of time for foolishness. But what I appreciate about you is you said, well, how can I make it better? Mm-hmm. So you didn't take offense because we wanted to make it work. It was just like, how do we do it? And how do we come out productive on the other end so we can be helpful to the audience that we want to connect with? So I'm grateful that you stuck it out with me.
Well, you know what I understand about relationships is that, like you said, we were going through COVID and I was just transitioning from a full-time job into entrepreneurship, interested in networking. And I think the power of this connection is that sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone to connect with other people, right? you have to make sure, and it's a vulnerable space because will they like me? Will they like the services that I offer? Will they refer me? And all of the things that go through your mind when you're connecting with people. But again, it's worth it because then I got not just this process, but a sisterhood, because that was important to her, right?
Yeah, it was. It was very important because the things that connect us, right? We'll get more into it, but we both, want to help our community. So that was an intersection. We're both married. We're both raising a young person. We value education. So it's been a learning process. And the great thing is, it's like we get on, like we done known each other for 20 years and laugh and be like, oh, yeah, we got to work.
Right, like this, like we're supposed to be talking about something other than this, right? And what I love is that's when it's natural, when you don't have to force a relationship, is really great, right? And so we're giving people time to get on, but just giving you some background of who we are and how we came to be on this video together. And it's weird because I'm a married woman. I've been married for 19 years, but I'm also a divorcee or divorcee. Whichever one, don't judge me.
I'm not.
I've been divorced. And which, 7 years of my life. I got married at 19 years old, divorced at 26, and remarried at 28, and pretty much have been married for all of my life. But I have a 19-year-old, and I'm part of a blended family. I have 4 bonus children. So then to come in contact with you, who's been married.
Because my one kid feels like 4. Bless your heart. Wow.
Yeah. So you've been married how long?
14 years, October 28th. I just made it with my boyfriend. He still like me.
After 14 years, I guess so, right? It's cheaper. But yeah, and then you have your one baby. And
my precious boo.
We had a conversation with me being, divorced and you and getting remarried. You like, no, I can only do it one time. This disclaimer out there, in case my ex-husband is listening. I love you. It's all good. We have a good relationship. If you didn't have issues, I would probably be with you. But anyway, no.
Stay focused.
No, seriously. It goes into some of what we were talking about with personal identity. We're getting into having conversation about our personal identity and having personal identity in marriage. And the one thing I can say, again, I do have a great relationship with him, but how to have that and nurture that kind of relationship post-divorce has really been a part of the training that I received and the examples that I received from early on. So we're going to jump into it. You ready to jump in?
I am.
We are asking you all if you are online. We see some people who are online. Hey, Jessica. Grace Gates is watching with us. Rosin Kaz, my sister-in-law, is watching with us. Vanessa, my community sister, Vanessa Scott Gates. So if you are here, please give StreamYard permission to see your comments so we can see you. We want to hear, see your feedback, right, in comments into this in this session. So let's get started, Lisa.
Yes, ma'am. What's the topic?
The topic is to thine own self be true. To thine own self be true, exploring personal identity in marriage. And what we really want to say first off is we understand that the truth and nothing but the truth is coming from our perspectives. This is not a counseling session. It's based upon our experiences, what we've learned in being married and being in relationships. And whether you are contemplating marriage, engaged, newlywed, or you've been in a seasoned relationship, the information that we're talking about is so pertinent to establishing and building and maintaining a successful marriage. So the first thing we want to talk about is define, what does it mean to have a personal identity? What does that mean, Lisa?
So it's about, for me, It's about my experiences. It's about my childhood and how that informs, right, everything around you and the choices you make, the people you choose to engage with. And so when you look at the optic of being someone's partner, right, you go in as an individual person. Because I know initially when I got married, I was like, I don't really understand this oneness. Like, what is that even about? Like, it's two people to me coming into one marriage. And so, and me holding on to my own personal identity and really having that evolve over time. So it informs every relationship that you have, who you are, good, bad, ugly. It informs how you move through life.
Yeah, we talked about it. It's almost like it's a barometer in a lot of ways of how you see the relationships that you're facing, how you engage in them. I know going back, as I spoke about the experiences I had when I was young, your personal identity is the evolution of your beliefs and your experiences that you formed in managing your relationships, and in particularly to marriage. I remember being young and love my mother and father, and we've had these kind of conversations, but not necessarily a relationship that was the most loving in the way that I thought it would be, right? Of what I saw on TV or what other people were experiencing. And what I found myself doing when I became a part of a marital situation, even contemplating relationships, I started seeing a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities. And I remember having that moment of self-awareness, because in this personal identity, if you're talking about exploring it, you have to have a sense of self-awareness or mindfulness or intention about your patterns of behavior. So speak of that. Speak to that.
I totally agree, because my parents are divorced. They divorced when I was around 10. And so I knew when I got married, I didn't want to recreate that pattern. And so my husband, I went and bought books. Like he was in class. I went and bought books. We went to marriage seminars because I was like, what you're not going to do.
Right.
We're not about to have a family and then break up and then you're going to have my kids running around here looking crazy. It's not happening. And in that moment, it was really prevention, I guess, in a way. But I ultimately think by having those tough conversations up front, that has sustained us over time, because you don't always like your husband. Like I heard TD Jakes I heard him say, sometimes when you're married, you just go home because that's where your shoes are at.
Girl, but okay, my husband. I get it.
Because it's a daily commitment, and Absolutely. So, when you talk about how your upbringing impacts and is a barometer for your marriage and who you partner with, it's almost as if you have to look at who you are and understand who you are before you can even go find that person, that life mate that you can before you even have a chance to stay together and have the years have the days turn into years. It's really a daily walk and a daily commitment is what I found out later in marriage. It's every day getting up, committing to that same person. Like, I still want to come back to you at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it's rewarding, and when we were talking about your patterns, going back to my mother and father, my father was probably 15, 20 years my mother's senior. So I remember even looking at that example and finding myself in a relationship, a similar relationship with someone who was about 15, 20 years my senior, which I never should have been in one, but it was because of the modeling and the behaviors that I saw growing up, and understanding that oftentimes it's because of a lack of awareness. Again, my mother and father's relationship was what it was, right? And no shade to them, but that wasn't a relationship that I needed to be in, right? And that I wanted. And so at that time in my life, when I was in this relationship with this guy, I had no idea. Like, I didn't go through a process of self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was just in survival mode. I just thought you're supposed to be with somebody, and who cares if they, are older or whatever. And so having self-awareness in developing and nurturing
Mm-hmm.
personal identity is essential to
Yes.
navigating marriage. Essential.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. When you consider where you are right now in your life, do you
Mm-hmm.
consider yourself in the picture of your life story? And if so, where do you find yourself? Are you in the center, meaning that this is a season for you? Are you on the sidelines, kind of watching things happen? Or are you in the background supporting other people? Where do you find yourself?
So I would definitely answer that question, but I also invite others who are watching us answer that
Absolutely.
question as well. We want to hear where you feel you are in your life. Are you in the center? Are you on the sidelines? Are you in the background? And before I answer that question, we were also talking about understanding that it's a role
Mm-hmm.
that you play. You have to understand that you are the role in that season doesn't mean that you're giving up your personal identity. So because of the identity or personal identity that I have,
Mm-hmm.
I am always trying to be in the center of my life because life is so short. And I realize that every decision that I make or collection of those decisions I make equal my life. And so one point that we were talking about in self-awareness is that personal responsibility for your life. Because even when you are in marriage, right, you are still responsible for your own happiness.
Right.
And one thing that my husband, and I love him for this, is that he said, I cannot make you happy. Like this, even though you're married to me, this is still your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like he gave me a permission that I didn't know that I needed. Cause I'm like, well, of course that's my life. But
Right.
so many, well, duh, but as I've gotten older and the more responsibilities that we've taken on, he continues to remind me, yeah, I understand that you're doing this and that for for your own personal growth or your own in our family, but it's also you have to take time for yourself and make sure that you're doing the things that you love and that rejuvenate you. Because if you're not happy, right, then we're not going to be happy. Because I always say the man may be the head of the household, but the woman sets the tone. Okay.
Okay.
And if that woman's not happy, ain't nobody happy.
you gonna just put it out there like that, right? So
What's
said
in
the
the corner?
middle,
The truth and nothing but the truth.
the truth and nothing but the truth. So when Titus says in the middle, and I'm assuming he's talking about in the middle of his life. I think for me, I feel like right now I'm in the center of my life, and I've shifted roles because a lot of times, like in helping build businesses and helping to support other people, and sometimes out of fear, I was on the sidelines or playing the background, right? Sometimes out of fear. And so now, given the opportunity that I have now to be a full-time entrepreneur and to have that kind of support, and it hasn't been for the faint of heart, but to have that kind of support from my husband and my family, I find myself in the middle and more intentional about what I do. So not in the middle where I'm overshadowing everyone else's pursuits and passions, but it's my time. It's my time because what I need to give out, the world needs, right? And we have seasons. And so thinking about that, when we're developing personal identity, strong personal identity is essential when it comes to intimacy, is essential when it comes to asserting yourself and setting and exercising what we saw boundaries, not walls, right? So let's say that again, boundaries, not walls with family, friends, or our partners. Talk about that, about setting those boundaries.
So I'll make 2 points actually. So when you what was the statement you made about the support of your spouse? So I feel like I'm superwoman. when my husband like has my back. And it's not that I can't accomplish it without his support, but when you got your ride or die. I always say I create the dreams and my husband builds it, because whatever I dream, that man is like right there. And so having the support of your husband, I think, also adds to your personal identity, because it gives you the ability to grow, and it gives you grace to mess up. And when you're able to mess up and he still loves you, and he's like, I got you, you're like, whoa, you kind of sexy. It creates intimacy, which doesn't necessarily mean physical intimacy, but to have an endearment for someone that loves you regardless, and not because they have to love you, but because they're committed to you. I mean, that's like a connection that can't be created unless you have that support.
Yeah. And I feel like it's okay to set healthy boundaries around outside relationships. And what we said earlier was, or in our conversations have been, personal identity is not synonymous with singleness. Right? So this is not about you going and living your best life, kicking it with your girlfriends, and not cognizant of how your personal identity impacts the family unit or your marital situation. It simply means that you have the right to have an opinion. You have a right to have friends. You have a right to have ideas, and you have a right to feel the way you're feeling. But you also have a right to understand that your life is unfolding. Right? And as it unfolds, there are new boundaries that you have to set up, even in your marital situations. So that's what
I think you have to set those up, right? Because that person is growing too. And so, and that person is dealing with their stuff and their childhood. Because my husband thought, it's funny, when we first got married, he was like, well, you're my wife, so we should just be in agreement, like all the time on everything. And I'm like, no. It drove him crazy. And I feel like he's come to a point of acceptance, because also, right, if you don't have those differences, then you don't grow as a couple.
Right.
Like the fact that I can go out and he knows I'm coming home, it's like, I learned this. And then I expose him to something new, and he exposes me to something new. But because we have things outside of one another, I think that brings a level of intimacy, and knowing how to treat each other and what each other needs. Because I can't give him everything that he needs, just like he can't give me everything I need to be happy. So understanding where those boundaries are for the other person, I think, is healthy.
Absolutely. And I think growing up, we're often taught that someone else is supposed to provide that space for us, if that makes, like, they're supposed to come and rescue us. They're supposed to be our all in all when you get married. And it is sometimes conflicting with the things that we've been taught about two should become one in church and all of that, which it has its place, right? Again, we're not talking about living singleness while being married, but the importance of knowing who you are only benefits the family unit.
Yeah.
If you're constantly seeking for, I'll give you a case in point. The self-awareness that I have now is, I read a book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages, right? And so for me, my love language is affirmation. I like to hear that I'm doing a great job. It's not that I'm out here thirsty for it, though. Let's put that out.
Let's be clear.
Let's put it clear. Like, I'm not thirsty for compliments. So, but I like knowing that what I'm doing is making a difference. Okay. So I remember earlier on in my marriage that I had to be very careful in making sure that I wasn't, because I like that affirmation, that I wasn't getting addicted to achievements. I wasn't getting addicted to things that were driving me so point where it was coming destructive in my relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you have to know where you are. And it's not for my husband to be the person who's forever affirming me. Yeah, he plays a part in that, but it's too much of a burden on anyone to be your end all, to be your only affirmation of who you are.
Right. It's also limiting because it's one person's perspective.
True. And I have some friends around me that just tell you how it is. So they affirm, but they keep you low.
They snatch you.
They snatch you all the way back. They snatch you all the way back. And Grace Gates, if you listen and I'm calling you out, Yvette, I'm calling you out because they keep you level, and you need that. The awareness that your mate cannot be your end all be all. They're not meant to be your end all be all. There's a part of you that still has to be developed, So go ahead. Any other thoughts you have right there?
No, but how about we talk about, because in our conversation we were talking about there's 3 types of people when it comes to their perspective of personal identity. The 3 that we came up with, and again, we want our audience to engage. Yes. See if you fall in any 3 of these buckets. You're afraid that you're losing your identity. You are terrified of losing your identity. So you haven't lost it, but you just feel like at any moment you're on the verge of like having a meltdown about it. And what are you doing to avoid your personal identity? So we talked about in those perspectives, awareness has to be or can be the first step to a rediscovering your identity in the relationship. And so for me, when you talked about having a personal identity doesn't mean singleness. Like, listen, doctor, that's where I lived for probably about a good 10 years of my marriage. Like, dude, I remember one time I had gone and got some glasses, and my husband, I had already had 2 pairs. I just wanted another pair.
Why not?
Because my husband's like, well, did you really need them? And I said, no, but I wanted them. And he was like, I was like, do I need to pay for them? Like, I could put the money back in the house account. He was like, that ain't what I'm saying. I said, but what are you saying? But now looking at that, it was like, well, looking back, I was like, well, you didn't really need them. You could have responded differently. It wasn't that he wasn't saying you can't have them. But again, going back to the thought of the family unit, did you really need the glasses? Like, you probably could have done something else with the money. Like, you already had 2 pair. So now that I've gotten older, I can have my own individuality, but as a wife and a mother, my responsibility is to my husband and my child, because this is the life that I chose and said that I wanted. So it's not like I can get this life and put it on the shelf. And I think I've lived like that a large part of my marriage. It's like, oh, I got that, check. Got the husband, check. Got the baby, check. And it's just like, you're not living. So I definitely think, especially in the beginning, it was more that I'm terrified of losing my identity.
I don't know, to be honest with you, if I've ever been in the place where I was questioning, like losing my identity or afraid of losing my identity. I to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm still trying to kind of figuring that piece out.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that probably because I've been so driven, I haven't had the time to really think about losing my identity. So maybe that's my prevention mode.
Yeah. Right. I mean, definitely. You haven't, and I can definitely identify with that. I think that didn't really come into question for me until I had a whole baby.
Mm.
And I actually had to make a choice because I literally felt like if I tried to stay career driven to the extent that I was,
Yeah.
and while he was at the stage that he was at, like I literally was going to do more damage than good. So in many ways, even though I was continuing to move forward in my career, in many ways I off-ramped it to some extent because motherhood had to come through the forefront and become a part of my personal identity, which was a whole struggle. I mean, I was mad at that thing for a long time. I was just like, is all this kid does eat, poop, and sleep? Like, what is that about?
Like you need to bring something else to the table.
Right. Like a paycheck, all this work I'm doing.
So when you think about personal identity leads to longevity in marriage, and self-awareness about your personal identity leads to the understanding of its impact on the marriage. Losing your personal identity creates anxiety, resentment, and also feelings of hopelessness. It can, for some, which cause you to rebel. And what you'll find yourself doing is you'll go to the extreme because instead of communicating that you are evolving, because think about it. When we started out, for me, 19 years ago with my husband, for you, 10 years, 13 years ago, right?
Give me my whole
14 years ago, with your husband, we've evolved. Yeah. Our passions have evolved. Our wants and needs have evolved. And so, being aware of that to the point where you're communicating it. If you don't communicate it, you run the risk of having these entanglements. Now, we're not going to get on entanglements, but
not today.
That's for next week's session, the couples edition. But you can be in an entanglement with yourself, with your pride, with your ego, with your drive. So being aware of how do I keep myself governed and aligned, right? And disciplined, even with trying to maintain my personal identity.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So did we talk about, I can't remember how personal responsibility has a role in governing your personal identity in relationship.
I think we were talking about the fact that your personal identity, like you become when you get to that point of being anxious and resentful and so forth and rebellious, you almost look at the roles that you've played and you become angry at the fact, instead of taking the personal responsibility that this is my decision, this is my role. We look at our mate sometimes because, instead of saying, hey, this was me, we say, what did you do to get me to this place where I don't know who I am? Right? Mm-hmm. When you lose your personal identity, in essence, you're saying, who am I? Right. Who am I? Where do I go from there? And instead of taking the personal responsibility to say, guess what? I didn't communicate that I was evolving. Mm-hmm. I didn't communicate that my needs weren't being met in some way or another. Right. Mm-hmm. And so now I look at the roles that I've been playing and I'm mad and I'm angry and I'm acting out. And guess what? You're the problem. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, you just said a mouthful because really, again, there has been a couple of times in my marriage where I had to realize that nothing was going to change till I became a participant in my own rescue.
Wait.
Did I just drop that mic?
Wait, I'm just dropping stuff. What? You mean we have to participate in our own rescue? Okay,
like a little bit, just a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. At least to say I need help.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all you can do. Maybe it's like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I need help. So, and also in participating, it's also about realizing, at least it was for me, that if life, the more older I got or older I get and more responsibility I take on, I'm not a speedboat like I was in my 20s. Like, I'm a whole Navy tanker. So it takes, it's going to take a minute to turn life around. You're not as quick anymore. If you're like, in the prime of your career and you have a kid and you're trying to start a business, and it's just like, for me, I can't just drop everything that I'm doing to go live my best life, or this new best life that I thought or I think I want. It's a matter of doing things strategically and in a way that supports the family unit, but also moves me forward so that I'm not resentful, I'm not acting out. Yes, Grace, I have to participate. Grace is with us. You have to participate in your own rescue, because no one is coming. No one is sent. The Calvary is not coming for you.
And they're not supposed to. Like, we've been taught that people are supposed to be our savior. There's only one savior, and even he requires us to participate.
Oh, and how about you're not going to be rescued to if you have the capacity to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
If it's in your capacity, you don't need a miracle.
Oh, Lord, girl, you preaching.
Wow.
So let's think about asking the audience, what do you think, what can be done if you find yourself that your identity is slipping? Like, what are the things that you think could help other people in getting that back? Put some comments in the feed. We want to hear from you. So the question again is, what can a person do if they think their identity is slipping?
So I want to go back to something you touched on, because I think you can flesh it out a little bit more. You're talking about fear. So what role has fear played in your personal identity, and how did you get beyond the fear to participate in your own rescue?
It took a long time for me to get past, first of all, because I'm a high achiever and I seek that space of affirmation. It took a long time for me to move past the expectations that I have for myself. And I put a post out before, like, release other people from the expectations you have of them. It'll free you. Sometimes you have to release yourself from expectations, unrealistic expectations that you've placed upon your life, which will keep you in a fear mode, in a fearful space, right? Because I'm always thinking about, is it perfect? Am I living up to my full capacity? Is it making the impact? All those things that are going on in my mind can keep you in a fearful space. So for me, I had to really hone in on what is my purpose, because that drives my personal identity. I had to really step into my values, because my purpose aligns with values, which is faith, family, and community. And then I had to make the intentional decision to walk it out and be unapologetically about it. Like, go do what you got to do.
And if you mess up, it's okay.
Give yourself grace. That's the piece that we don't do, Lisa. We don't give ourselves grace. And why?
Ooh.
Why?
I think we don't give ourselves grace, because we care more about what other people think. Vanessa says she takes long walks, she reconnect with your wants, desires, emotions. Prayer for me is almost paramount to peeling off the toxicity and all of the effects. Listen, Vanessa, you are on my pew, girl, because this week I done put myself in an adult timeout. Like, we give kids time out.
Right.
When they acting out, we're like, you need a timeout. Go in the corner. But why don't adults take time out to reconnect with who we are?
Absolutely.
So I believe in adult timeouts.
I like adult timeouts. Yes, I do like adult timeouts.
Because you give yourself that time to understand where your personal identity is. So that's actually a good point. Yeah, definitely a good point, because, and I think grace within the adult timeout is where I'm able to give myself grace, because I think you and I align there that we are ambitious, that we do believe that we are more than who we are, and we're here to make a difference. But I think we forget that we too are human.
Absolutely.
And that we have to refill ourselves in order to continue to give out that light. So grace is important.
And give grace to other people who are still trying to figure out where they fit in your personal identity. You know, oftentimes we've come to an enlightenment about where we are and who we are. And when other people haven't come to that same enlightenment, we get angry, or we feel like, you know, you don't need to be in my circle, leave you behind. No, give grace to people. In your evolution, give grace to other people. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's a great point.
I like what Vanessa said about having that me time. However, like that is so important, to have that quality time when you are connecting with yourself, connecting with God, and even connecting with your friends and other pursuits that you have. As you said, it adds to the intimacy, because you have something to come back to the relationship with, to kind of keep it hot, right? And keep it exciting, because we're all evolving.
Yeah, because one of the points we wanted to make is it's okay to be intertwined in a marriage. Like, that's kind of the whole point, right? To connect with someone and build a life with someone, but it's also okay to untwine. Yeah, we created it. Or in some ways disconnect or unplug from the relationship for a minute. Yeah. Say, I'll be right back. You know, I'm not going anywhere. I just need a minute to kind of almost rejigger yourself, or you know, like the computer, where they tell you like to defragment the computer and let the computer put things back in its proper perspective. Like, we all need that time at different points in our life to ensure that we move forward in a whole way.
Absolutely. Because you think about it, there's beauty when two become one, but there's also risk. If you get to that point where you're asking, where do you end and where does the partner begin, you know, we're kind of in some dangerous territory. Yeah. You're never meant to just be, again, your spouse is not meant for them to be your end all be all. Like, there's something that you're supposed to be doing that's supposed to add value. That's the piece. Your relationships your personal identity is about adding value to the marital situation, right?
Or how about when people want to come into a marriage and don't have value, like not value, like in the sense of you're not valuable,
right?
But I tease my husband because I'm like, you got me on the cheap when you marry me, because you just need to have a place to stay, a job, a car, and know what a 401k was. You got to have a 401k. You just need to know what it was so you could get one later. But today,
yeah,
girl, it's just like you have to keep evolving and like keep it going, and want to do the work. Like, I think the hardest reason today why people can't stay married is because I heard someone say, you know, people say marriage is work. What is the work? The work is being committed.
Absolutely.
And giving grace to when the other person messes up.
Because I do until you do something stupid. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Sorry. It's real. It's real. This was right, but it's real.
And you know, I forgot about that statement.
I'm praying hard. And I'm sure men feel the same way, right? They feel the same way. We'll talk about that next week. But I was thinking about the whole idea of when you are the power of merging relationship is great, but having your first responsibility is to make sure that you personally are in alignment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that you're not this half a person, as we've been taught, half and half. No, you're a whole person coming
You
into it.
complete me.
No. Let me tell you something. Now, this is real talk, and I love my husband. I got the best of the best now. I love me some David Scott. But we have this running joke, like, dude, you know, if I hadn't met you, like, I still dope, like, you
Pretty
know,
much.
adding some value over here, boo.
Get it all the way together.
Right. And of course, that's just me, right? I know on his side, he's like, okay, and like I'm adding value myself. But the reality is we have to be in alignment with ourselves before we talk about truly being in alignment with a mate.
Yeah.
How is our relationship with God? How is our relationship to whoever? But I'm a Christian, so how's our relationship to God? And how are we settling within ourselves the things that we're supposed to do so that we know how to bring value,
Mm-hmm.
how to be in relationship, how to be in partnership, how to be in union. And it's okay to say, you know, I think the thing, and I don't want to talk too much. Hey, we got some more comments coming in. So read those comments, Lisa.
Ma'am, I cannot see them.
Oh, hold on. I'm getting so caught up. Hold on.
I don't know.
Yes, Grace.
Grace said, I have learned that you need moments to regroup all throughout the marriage.
All throughout.
Okay. Like you with the same person. For me, I've been with Lorenzo, my husband, for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've both changed. And we were having a conversation about where I want to go. And I told him, I said, I can either stay on course or I can move in this new way. I was like, I'm going to be ambitious, but I would rather be ambitious about this new path than the one I'm on.
Right.
And he was like, I support you. But it's all about communication and being whole at the end. Mm-hmm. And so marriage to me gives this space for grace. I mean, my husband, he has that thing hands down. Hands down. I mean, I don't think I could have married any other person because we would have been divorced, like for real. Because my personality is like big. It's like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And you not about to tell me what I can't do. And he's just like, I'm with you. Keep moving. I'm with you. You know, and so I just, you have to have, for me, I don't want to say have to, but for me,
right,
I need those moments to where I can go do the things that make me happy. But I honestly believe sometimes that when having personal identity, it does require a little selfishness.
Yeah.
Really, when you're doing your personal identity, it requires a little selfishness. But I noticed that I'm a new person. I have more value to add back into my marriage when I'm able to go do those things and regroup, like one of the audience members said, you need that time to regroup.
Yeah, and you have to remember that you are not the roles you play, right? These are simply roles that we play. We're mother, we're wife, we're friend, but we're not the role we play. And when we get caught up in those roles and stop in the doing of those roles and stop being the best, and it goes back to be what matters, shameless plug, but it goes back to being the best of who you are in what you do. Because when you're not the best of who you are, if you're not the whole person, if you're not aligned to what your values are, if you're not aligned to what you should be doing in the world, then you start perpetuating these disconnections.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Disconnections within yourself first, and then disconnections in these relationships that you have, especially in your marriage.
Mm-hmm. In coaching, we talked about who are you being and rather than who are you doing. Like being a human is not about the doing. It's about how you show up in the world. So I definitely agree. When you have those disconnections, you're all at a source, and you're not taking personal responsibility for where you are in life. You're not centered. And you're not being I think you don't have the capacity to be authentic at that point.
So just wrapping up a bit, because I didn't know we were going on this long. Like, talking to you is always easy, but think about if we can leave the audience with one point about personal identity, what would that be?
So whatever space you're in, we want you to own it, communicate it, and allow yourself grace to work through it. Because in realizing your life is evolving, it's never going to be exactly how you want it. For myself, and I'm sure Katina can attest to this, when you're driven, you're always going to find something out of whack that you want to fix. And so, in being able to communicate that, and Vanessa says that's true. It all of it makes me who I am. I can't just be a part. I can't just be a part of me and allow the rest of me to die. Listen, Miss Vanessa, you have said a whole word, because when you feel that part of you dying, it's just like, why am I here? Like, what's my purpose?
Right.
And so it's a continuous balance. But in order to be in relationship, those other things have to happen, because you don't want your spouse feeling like you don't need them anymore.
Absolutely. So say that part again about owning it. Say that again. Whatever
space you find yourself in, so whatever stage, whatever season, own it, communicate it, and allow yourself grace to work through it.
I love it. I think that's a great way to end. We want to thank you. That feeling, that feeling when you've worked on something and you want to give the best of it to the audience, and you know that you've been called to do something. So thank you for rocking it out with us today. Next week,
yes, ma'am,
we are back 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and we have a special guest, Tobias, who's going to be with us, because we also understand that as women, we love to hear ourselves talk. Nothing wrong with that. But it's also great to have a male perspective. So we're inviting our special guest to be here. I would switch over to that, but I don't want to jack everything up. Watch our posts. Please make sure that you are doing the notifications. We will be live here again next week, November 14th, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, with our special guest, Tobias.
A whole husband.
Has a master's of social work, and he's an author. Great guy. And next week we're going to be talking about I love this. You asked for it, now grow. So talking about how in your relationships, how do you grow in your relationships, shed and grow, lose some of those perspectives so that you can be a stronger unit. So we're interested and excited. We want you to come back, share. And those who are catching us on the replay, we wish you were here, but we'll hopefully see you live next week.
Bye. See y'all next week. Bye, Doctor.
Bye-bye, Lisa. Talk to you soon.
Later.
Okay.